I'm Sophie, 35, and I'd been with my boyfriend Michael for 4 years. We met at the same company, a mid-sized pharmaceutical firm, where we both started as project managers around the same time. The relationship developed naturally over late nights finishing reports and bonding over terrible break room coffee. For the first 2 years, it was great. We understood each other's work stress, celebrated each other's wins, commiserated over the losses. Then something shifted. About a year and a half ago, Michael became obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder. Not just ambitious, obsessed. He started networking aggressively, volunteering for every high-visibility project, name-dropping in meetings. I was happy for his drive, but it came with a side effect. He started seeing me as competition instead of a partner. We'd always been equals at work, same title, similar performance reviews, comparable salaries. But Michael needed to be ahead. He began making subtle digs about my career choices, questioning why I wasn't pushing harder or thinking strategically about my future. When I got assigned in to lead a major client acquisition project last year, he barely congratulated me. Instead, he spent dinner that night talking about how he would have approached it differently. The real problem started when our department announced they were creating a new director of strategic initiatives position. It was the promotion both of us had been working toward, a significant jump in title, salary, and influence. The kind of role that only came around once every few years. Michael went into overdrive. He was at the office before everyone else and left after everyone else. He scheduled coffee meetings with every VP he could corner. He even started dressing differently, more corporate, more polished, like he was already in the role. I wanted the position too, but I took a different approach. I focused on delivering results on my current projects, building genuine relationships rather than transactional ones, and being honest in my assessments rather than telling executives what they wanted to hear. My philosophy was that good work speaks for itself. Michael disagreed. "You're too passive, Sophie," he told me one night while we were making dinner. "You can't just wait for people to notice you. You have to make them notice you." "I'm not waiting. I'm proving I can do the work." That's not enough anymore. Everyone can do the work. It's about perception, about making sure the right people see you as leadership material. "And you don't think they see me that way?" He hesitated just long enough for me to catch it. "I think you're talented. I just think you don't advocate for yourself enough." Translation. He didn't see me as competition. He'd already decided the job was his. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from our CFO, Martin Hayes. He asked me to come to his office at the end of the day. When I arrived, Martin and our CEO, Patricia Chen, were both there. "Sophie, thanks for coming," Patricia said. "We wanted to talk to you about the director position." My heart started racing. "Of course, we've been incredibly impressed with your work over the past year," Martin said. "The Arcadia acquisition you led brought in $20 million in new revenue. The way you rebuilt the relationship with Davidson Industries after that contract dispute was masterful. You have a reputation for being someone who solves problems without creating drama." That last part is particularly important to us. Patricia added, "We need someone in this role who can lead with integrity, who the team actually respects rather than fears. We'd like to offer you the position." I was stunned. I don't know what to say. "Thank you. When would this be effective?" "We're announcing it Friday at the management dinner. We're keeping it quiet until then. We want the announcement to come from us in an official capacity. Can you keep this confidential, even from Michael?" That last part hit me. They knew we were dating. They were specifically asking me not to tell him. "Of course," I said, "I understand." "We know this might create some tension at home," Patricia said carefully. "Michael's also been in consideration, and he's a strong candidate, but the board unanimously voted for you. You've earned this, Sophie." I thanked them again, shook their hands, and left feeling this strange mix of elation and dread. I'd gotten my dream job, but I knew how Michael would react. That night, Michael came home excited. "The promotion announcement is Friday," he said. "They're doing it at the management dinner at the Fairmont. I can't wait. This is finally happening." "That's great," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "You're coming, right?" "I want you there when they announce it." This was my moment to tell him, to sit him down and explain that I'd gotten the position instead. But something stopped me. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was curiosity about how he'd react. Maybe I was just tired of being treated like a supporting character in his success story. "I think the dinner is management only," I said carefully. "No, they said we could bring significant others. I already RSVP'd for both of us." "Are you sure? I don't want to overstep." He looked annoyed. "Sophie, you overthink everything. I want you there. It's important to me." 2 days before the dinner, Michael changed his tune. We were getting ready for bed when he brought it up. "Actually, I've been thinking about Friday," he said. "Maybe you shouldn't come to the dinner." "What? You just said you wanted me there." "I know, but I've been talking to some people and apparently it's pretty traditional to keep it to management only. Spouses are one thing, but since you're not management and we're not married, it might look weird." "Michael, you literally already RSVP'd for me. I can change it." "I just think it's better this way, less complicated." I studied his face. "You mean you don't want me there?" "That's not what I said, but it's what I mean. You want to have your big moment without me there. Don't be dramatic. It's for management only. You're not management." The way he said that last part, like it was something I should be ashamed of, made my decision for me. "Sure," I said with a smile. "I'll stay out of the way." He looked relieved. "Thank you. I knew you'd understand. This is really important to me, and I want to be able to focus on networking and celebrating without worrying about whether you're enjoying yourself." "Makes perfect sense." He kissed my cheek and went to brush his teeth, completely missing the edge in my voice. Friday arrived. Michael spent the entire day getting ready. Haircut, new suit he'd bought specifically for the occasion, rehearsing what he would say when they announced his name. I watched him move around the apartment like he was preparing for the Oscars. "I'll probably be home late," he said as he adjusted his tie one final time. "There's usually drinks after these things, and I want to make a good impression on the board." "Of course. Good luck tonight," I said. "Thanks, Sophie. I'll text you when they make the announcement. I want you to be the first to know." He left around 5:30. I stayed behind in the apartment, making sure our guest, Daniel, Michael's longtime friend who was staying with us for a few weeks, was comfortable. Daniel had been quiet all afternoon, settling into the spare room, but I knew he'd be curious about the dinner. I gave him a quick rundown of the event, careful not to reveal anything about the promotion. "I'll keep out of the way," Daniel said with a small smile. "Just don't let Michael boss me around tonight." I laughed. "Deal, you just stay invisible." By 7, I was dressed in a sharp navy suit, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. I arrived at the Fairmont just as the pre-dinner drinks were starting. Patricia had arranged for me to wait in a side room until the announcement. I could hear laughter, glasses clinking, the hum of 50 people mingling. "You ready?" Patricia poked her head in at 7:45. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said. "Michael's been working the room all night," she said with a slight smile. "Very confident. This should be interesting." The banquet hall looked exactly as I expected. Round tables with white tablecloths, floral centerpieces, a small stage at the front with a podium and microphone. I could see Michael near the front, chatting animatedly with some VPs, completely in his element. He looked radiant, completely sure this night was his. Patricia tapped the microphone, and the room quieted down. "Good evening, everyone," she began. "Thank you all for being here. As you know, we've gathered tonight to celebrate our team and announce some exciting changes in our leadership structure. Over the past few months, the board has been evaluating candidates for our new Director of Strategic Initiatives position." I watched Michael straighten in his chair, putting on his most professional smile. He had positioned himself perfectly, close enough to the front to make a short walk to the stage, but not so close that it looked presumptuous. "The person we've selected has consistently demonstrated exceptional leadership, strategic thinking, and an ability to build consensus across departments. They've led some of our most successful initiatives over the past year, including the Arcadia acquisition and the Davidson contract renewal." Michael's smile wavered slightly. Those were my projects, not his. But he recovered quickly, probably assuming Patricia was just giving context before the announcement. "It is my great pleasure to announce that our new Director of Strategic Initiatives is Sophie Foster." The room erupted in applause. I stood from my seat at the back and began walking toward the stage. Every step felt surreal. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, including Michael's. His mouth literally hung open. Patricia shook my hand as I reached the podium. "Congratulations, Sophie. Would you like to say a few words?" I took the microphone, looking out at the room, at my colleagues who had become friends, at the executives who had trusted me with this opportunity, and at Michael, still frozen in his seat. "Thank you, Patricia, and thank you to the entire board for this incredible opportunity," I began. "I'm honored and humbled that you've placed your trust in me. I've always believed that leadership isn't about self-promotion. It's about service. It's about making the people around you better, about solving problems quietly and effectively, about putting the mission before your ego. That's the kind of director I intend to be." More applause. I handed the microphone back to Patricia and stepped off the stage. Several people came up to congratulate me, shaking my hand and patting my back. Through the crowd, I could see Michael still sitting at his table, face pale, hands clenched in his lap. He didn't come to congratulate me. He sat there through the rest of Patricia's remarks, through dinner, through dessert. I tried to catch his eye a few times, but he wouldn't look at me. Around 9:30, I saw him get up and leave through a side door. I followed him into the hallway. He leaned against the wall, phone in hand, looking like someone who had just been punched. "You knew," he said finally, his voice tight. "You've known for weeks and you didn't tell me. They asked me to keep it confidential. I'm your boyfriend, Sophie. You couldn't give me a heads up?" "They specifically said not to tell you," I said calmly. "I didn't have a choice." "So you let me walk in there thinking I got the job. You let me sit through that whole announcement looking like an idiot. You assumed you got the job." "I never assumed. You told me not to come. You literally told me yesterday." He stopped processing. "Wait, when you said, 'Sure, I'll stay out of the way,' you already knew you had the position. You told me not to come because I wasn't management. Those were your words because you thought it would be awkward for me to be there when you got promoted." "I was trying to be considerate," I said. "Were you? Or were you trying to have your moment without me there because you were embarrassed that your friend Daniel and I were standing at the same company while you became a director?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "That's what I thought." "This is unbelievable. You deliberately humiliated me in front of the entire management team." "I didn't humiliate you. I accepted a position I earned. You humiliated yourself by assuming it was yours. Everyone in that room knew I wanted this job. Everyone knew I'd been working toward it, and you just swooped in and took it." "I didn't swoop in. I did my job day after day without making a production out of it. That's what they rewarded." He shook his head, tears starting to form. "I can't believe you did this to me." "Michael, I didn't do this to you. This isn't about you at all. This is about me getting recognition for my work. We can't work together anymore, not with you as a director and me still as a manager. Everyone will think I'm only still here because we're dating." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm putting in my notice on Monday. I'll find something else." "You're quitting because I got promoted?" "I'm quitting because you betrayed me." He pushed past me and walked back toward the banquet hall, probably to get his things. I stood there in the empty hallway, replaying the conversation, trying to figure out if I'd been cruel or just honest. Saturday morning was quiet. Michael hadn't come home the night before. Around 11:00, he texted, "I'm staying at Daniel's tonight. Need space to think." I replied simply, "Okay." The apartment felt emptier than usual, even with Daniel still there. By mid-morning, he showed up to grab some of his things. I was making coffee when he walked in, dragging a duffel bag behind him. "I'm just grabbing a few things," he said without looking at me. "We should talk about this," I said. "There's nothing to talk about," he replied. "Sophie, you threw away 4 years over a job promotion." He finally looked at me. His eyes were red from crying. "This isn't about the promotion. This is about trust. You kept something huge from me. You watched me prepare for that dinner, watched me get excited, and you didn't say anything because you were asked not to. I'm your partner. I should have come first." "Even when it meant violating a direct request from the CEO?" I asked. "Even when it meant potentially jeopardizing my new position?" "Yes," he said. "That's what partners do. They look out for each other." "And what were you doing when you told me not to come to the dinner? When you said I wasn't management like it was something to be ashamed of? Were you looking out for me then?" He started tossing clothes into his duffel bag, frustration written across his face. "I was trying to spare you from exactly what happened," I said, "from sitting there and watching someone else get what you wanted." "But it didn't happen to me," he said, voice breaking. "It happened to you, and you didn't want to spare me. You wanted to spare yourself from having to deal with my emotions if you got the job, and I didn't." "That's not true, is it? Be honest, Michael. If you'd gotten the director position, would you have worried about how it made me feel, or would you have been too busy celebrating?" He zipped up the bag violently. "I would have been sensitive to your feelings like you've been for the past year, when you constantly questioned my choices, when you made it clear you thought I wasn't ambitious enough. I was trying to help you. I was trying to stay ahead of you. Because the second we weren't equals, the second there was a chance I might surpass you, I became a threat instead of a partner." He stood there with his bag. I could see him struggling with whether to argue or leave. He chose leaving. "I'll come get the rest of my stuff next week," he said. "We can figure out the apartment then." "Michael, I can't do this right now," I said. "I just can't." He left. The apartment felt impossibly quiet after he was gone. Daniel, who had been in the living room reading quietly, looked up. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I said, more to myself than to him. Sunday passed slowly. I replayed everything in my mind, questioning whether I had made the right choices, wondering how much longer I could stay in an apartment now filled with reminders of someone who had suddenly become a stranger. I tried to focus on work, but every email, every project update reminded me that Michael would no longer be part of this chapter of my life. Monday morning at work was predictably awkward. Word had spread over the weekend, and people either congratulated me or gave me sympathetic looks, depending on whether they'd heard about the drama. Michael didn't come in. His assistant said he was taking a personal day. Around 10 o'clock, Patricia called me into her office. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I've been better," I admitted. "I heard Michael's considering leaving," she said. "That's unfortunate. He's talented, even if he wasn't the right fit for this particular role. He feels humiliated, I'm sure." "Does he? Or does he feel entitled to something he didn't earn?" I asked quietly. Patricia hesitated. "Sophie, I'm going to tell you something I probably shouldn't. When we were making this decision, Michael was very vocal about his candidacy. He scheduled multiple meetings with board members specifically to campaign for the position. That's not necessarily wrong, but in those meetings he repeatedly implied that you weren't interested in the role, that you'd told him you were happy where you were." My stomach dropped. "I never said that." "We figured as much," Patricia continued. "That's part of why we chose you. We need leaders who lift others up, not tear them down to make themselves look better." I left her office feeling simultaneously validated and betrayed. Michael hadn't just been competing with me. He'd been actively trying to sabotage my chances. By Wednesday, he finally showed up at work. We crossed paths in the hallway outside his office. He looked exhausted. His normally confident posture slumped. "Hey," I said cautiously. "Hey," he replied. "Have you made a decision about everything? I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice tomorrow. I have an offer from a smaller competitor, senior manager, with a path to director in 18 months. "That's good. I'm happy for you." He laughed bitterly. "Are you, though?" "I am. I never wanted you to fail, Michael. I just wanted to succeed, too." "Well, you got what you wanted. Congratulations, Director Foster," he said, voice dripping with resentment. I nodded. "I'm sorry it ended this way." "No, you're not. You proved your point. You won." He walked away before I could respond. 2 months have passed. Michael left the company as promised, taking his new position at a competitor. We haven't spoken since the hallway conversation. He sent movers for his stuff while I was at work one Saturday. I came home to an apartment that felt half empty, a note on the counter simply reading, "Keep the coffee maker. You can have everything else." The director role has been challenging but rewarding. I've built a good team, implemented initiatives showing early success, and felt like I'm finally doing the work I was meant to do. I ran into Daniel at a coffee shop a few weeks ago. He told me Michael was doing well at his new company, dating someone he met at a networking event, and had moved on completely. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I think so," I admitted. "It sucks that it ended that way, but I can't pretend I didn't see the signs." He wanted a cheerleader, not a partner. The second I wasn't supporting his narrative, I became the enemy. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing." He was so obsessed with that promotion that he couldn't see anything else. It wasn't healthy. My parents asked last week if I had any regrets about how I handled the situation. I admitted that maybe I should have given him a heads up before the dinner, but honestly, it wouldn't have changed anything. He still would have felt betrayed. He still would have made it about him. Some people can't celebrate others' success when it diminishes their own. I've been on a couple of dates since the breakup. Nothing serious, just testing the waters. It's strange being single again at 35, but it's also freeing. I don't have to worry about competition or comparison. I can just be myself. Last week, I got an email from Michael. Just a few lines. "Sophie, I've been doing a lot of thinking and therapy. I realize I didn't handle things well. I let my ambition consume me, and I treated you like an obstacle instead of a partner. You deserve better. I hope you're doing well in your new role. You earned it." I appreciated the apology. I even started to write a response, but ultimately deleted the draft. Some chapters are meant to stay closed. The promotion dinner feels like a lifetime ago now, but I still remember standing at that podium, realizing I had finally gotten recognition for doing things the right way, not through politics, self-promotion, or tearing others down, but through consistent, honest work. And yeah, there was a small part of me that enjoyed seeing Michael realize he had underestimated me, that enjoyed proving I was more than the passive boyfriend he'd thought I was. Maybe that makes me petty, but it also makes me human. After Michael left, the apartment felt almost too quiet. Daniel had been staying with us for a few weeks already, but now, without Michael around, his presence was louder in a subtle way. I'd always known him as Michael's easygoing friend, someone who could crash on a couch and not complain. But living under the same roof brought out quirks I hadn't anticipated. He made the kitchen his personal lab, leaving coffee grounds and tea bags scattered like tiny bombs across the counter. I'd catch him talking to himself while reading emails or muttering about deadlines for some online freelancing project. "Daniel, seriously," I said one morning, picking up a pile of receipts he'd left on the floor. "Are you trying to make a map of the kitchen?" He looked up sheepishly. "It's research for optimizing snack access efficiency. Trust me, this is cutting-edge stuff." I rolled my eyes but smiled. Despite everything, it was a welcome distraction from the emptiness Michael had left behind. Over the next week, we settled into a strange routine. I went to work, came home, and found Daniel, either lounging in the living room with headphones blasting or intensely focused on his laptop. He cooked most evenings, which was nice, though his experiments sometimes resulted in smoke alarms going off. "You okay?" I asked one night after the alarm screeched again. "I'm fine," he said, waving a spatula like a weapon. "I call this dish abstract pasta. It's very avant-garde." "Or very fire hazard," I muttered, laughing. Living with Daniel reminded me of the freedom I had now. No competition, no subtle power struggles. I could make decisions for myself, decorate the apartment the way I liked, and focus entirely on my role as director. Work was everything I had hoped it would be. I built my team carefully, nurturing people who weren't just skilled, but aligned with the company values I cared about: integrity, collaboration, and quiet competence. Seeing a project take shape, watching someone else shine because I'd given them the tools, it was gratifying in a way I hadn't expected. One evening, as Daniel and I shared a late-night snack, he asked, "So, Michael, you're okay, right?" I leaned back against the counter, sipping tea. "I'm better than okay. Honestly, I'm relieved. That relationship, it wasn't healthy anymore. He wanted someone who validated him at every step. I wanted a partner, someone who could celebrate my success too." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds like you got exactly what you needed. And me, well, I guess I got front row seats to the fallout." I laughed, imagining Michael pacing in Daniel's apartment, fuming silently. "Yeah, poor guy. He'll survive, eventually." Weeks turned into months. Michael's emails became fewer and farther between. He'd found his footing at the competitor company, dating someone new, moving on completely. Life went on. I ran meetings, launched initiatives, and started seeing small successes that felt like personal victories, not just career milestones. One morning, I walked into the office with a plan for a new client acquisition. My team was ready, enthusiastic, and trusting. For the first time, I felt the full weight of being in charge, not in a stressful, overwhelming way, but in a responsible, empowered way. I was finally steering the ship, making decisions, and seeing the results of my own judgment. When Daniel visited on weekends, we'd talk over coffee about work, life, and occasionally gossip about mutual friends. He was still a little chaotic, still leaving coffee cups on the floor, but I didn't mind. His presence was comforting in a way Michael's hadn't been anymore. One evening, I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, reflecting on everything that had happened. The promotion, the breakup, Michael's betrayal, the emptiness, Daniel's quirks, and the new sense of independence. I realized I was no longer defined by anyone else's ambition or expectations. I was Sophie Foster, Director of Strategic Initiatives, and I was finally living life on my own terms. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think of Michael and feel a flicker of regret, not for losing him, but for how tangled things had become. And then I'd remind myself I hadn't lost because of failure. I'd won because I stayed true to myself. Daniel peeked into the room, holding a tray of snacks. "Deep thoughts again?" "Something like that," I said, smiling. "Good. Someone's got to keep me entertained," he said, plopping onto the couch beside me. "Besides, you need to remember, you're not just surviving, you're thriving, and you've got me to witness it all." I laughed, letting the tension of the past few months melt away. It wasn't perfect. There were still traces of disappointment and hurt, but for the first time in a long time, I felt whole, capable, and unshakably me. And that was enough.